Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena here. You're watching our video comparison between the new HTC One and the Samsung Galaxy S4. So you're probably wondering why we're comparing Samsung's flagship smartphone from last year to the new HTC One. Well, for starters, these are two handsets that are readily available right now. There's no arguing about the Galaxy S4's success last year and even now, so it's only fitting to see how it compares with the latest device from HTC's camp. Well, this one really shouldn't be a shocker, folks, just because the HTC One continues the trend of having a more premium construction that's thanks in part to its all-metal design. When we think about a flagship smartphone, the new HTC One easily comes to mind just because it's attached with that premium construction. It's comprised out of 90% brushed aluminum, which gives it a very sturdy construction and appealing look as well. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy S4, it's not as daring with its polycarbonate plastic casing. Sure, it contributes in giving it a smaller form factor and also a lighter feel in the hand, but regardless of that, it just seems dull in comparison. If we take a look around their trims, they pretty much feature the same set of ports and buttons. They include their micro USB ports for charging data connectivity and also video out functionality, their various microphones, you have their 3.5mm headset jacks, their power buttons and volume controls, and even IR blasters. It's really wonderful to see that the HTC One now features a micro SD card slot, but accessing it's a little bit tougher than the Galaxy S4 slot, just because the Galaxy S4, you just got to remove the back cover and that's pretty simple. But with the HTC One, you got to use that pinhole adapter to gain access to it. The new HTC One features the same signature front-firing dual speakers with HTC boom sound. The placement of them makes sense over the Galaxy S4's single speaker, which is placed in the back of the phone. Fortunately for the new HTC One, its screen has been increased over its predecessor to make it more flagship-like. To be more exact, it's a 5-inch 1080p Super LCD 3 display with Gorilla Glass 3. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy S4, it's a 5-inch 1080p Super AMOLED display with Gorilla Glass 3. Seeing that they both have the same pixel density figure of 441 pixels per inch, there's not one display that's superior over the other. In fact, they're both very detailed and visible. Looking at them, we can't help but take notice of the iridescent glow with their displays. Some punchy colors, very lively, though you tend to have a little bit more saturation going with the Super AMOLED panel of the Galaxy S4. And on top of that, it seems to have the better viewing angles as well. There's less distortion at wide angles. Still, the Super AMOLED display here just washes out when reviewing it outdoors with the sun present. Whereas with the HTC One Super LCD 3 panel, we have no issues viewing it outdoors just because of its stronger brightness output. We can't neglect talking about the additional tech included with the S4's display. Specifically, with the Air View functionality, it's able to actually track our finger over the display, so it's mainly used for a variety of different functions. Here in the web browser, we're going to get this magnified view, and you can see how it's able to track our finger. Beyond their physical designs and hardware specs, the other thing that greatly differentiates them are their respective platform experiences. With the new HTC One, it has the updated Sense 6.0 user interface, whereas with the Galaxy S4, it has the Samsung TouchWiz Nature UX experience. When it comes to the visuals of the interface, there's no denying that Sense 6.0 in the HTC One is far superior and more stylish than its counterpart in TouchWiz with the Samsung Galaxy S4. HTC takes great pride in having a very nice looking UI that matches the beauty of the design of the handset. Samsung's take on the Android experience is a little bit more reserved than its rival, and generally speaking, the UI tends to have a little bit more of a cartoony look. It doesn't have the same modern appeal found with Sense 6.0. They obviously have their specific strengths. With Sense 6.0, we really take a liking to the modern design of the UI. It's sleek, it's cool, very modern, and on top of that, it's simple. They don't try to inundate us with some redundant features. However, if you adore having a lot of software features at your disposal, you're going to like TouchWiz just because you gain that. So for example, you're going to have all the different air gestures, which allows us to actually interact with the phone, waving our hand in the web browser to scroll up and down or in the gallery left and right. And like I said already before, you have the air view functionality where basically the handset's display is able to track our finger. Now, it's just nice that you have a wealth of features like this, but for some people, they just seem a little bit obnoxious. HTC has enhanced how we're able to unlock the device. So for example, if you want to quickly look at the time or date, you could double tap the screen while holding it, automatically will turn it on. If you want to jump into the last thing you're doing or unlocking the device, just do a swipe up gesture. If you want to gain access to the camera, all you gotta do is tilt it to landscape and press any of the volume controls. It'll jump right into it. It's very nice and useful and obviously practical as well. Even though it's not quite as expansive as the new motion launch gestures that we see from the HTC One, the Galaxy S4 has something similar with the lock screen. So if we want to peek at some pertinent information, we can essentially just wave our hand over the screen. From here, it's going to wake it up and display the time, date, and some of the notifications. At the foundation, they both have all of the rich features of the Android experience. They include things like the wealth of personalization options, so you could have a bunch of different stuff in the home screen. You're going to have the tight integration with Google services. You have also a really great notification system in play and also multitasking. However, the S4 takes the multitasking experience to the next level with its multi-windows feature. So basically we gain true multitasking with it. So for example, we could have the web browser up and running like so, and if we want to, we could quickly just drag over the gallery on top on one side. So now we have access to both applications simultaneously. Being the newer device, the HTC One manages to benefit by having the latest hardware gear from Qualcomm. It's a quad-core 2.3 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 processor with 2 GB of RAM. It easily outclasses the now dated quad-core 1.6 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 processor with 2 GB of RAM in the Samsung Galaxy S4. Obviously, for basic things, you're not going to notice a whole lot of difference, but for more processor intensive stuff like gaming or heavy multitasking, the HTC One shows its snappier response. Not surprisingly, these two high-end devices handle the web browsing experience with ease. No issues whatsoever. You have fast 4G LTE connectivity in tow with both and also navigational controls, but there are certain cool features that some people will like with the Galaxy S4. Like we've detailed already, you have the air gestures in play with the Galaxy S4. So basically we could wave our hand over the display and it'll scroll up and down. As an alternative too, you have the eye scrolling feature with the Galaxy S4. So we could just look up, look down, and tilt the handset slightly to scroll up and down. Then again, we see that emphasis with quality design with the music player on the HTC One. The Sense 6.0 music player is just visually more pleasing over what the Galaxy S4's TouchWiz music player has to offer. Just because with the Sense 6.0 music player, you're going to have this really neat visualizer effect. So it gives some 3D effects while a song's playing. On top of that, it'll display the lyrics as well. Strangely enough, as we were testing both out, the S4's single speaker in the back actually emits the slightly stronger volume tones between the two. So with the dual front-firing speakers of the HTC One, it's still pretty loud and commanding. We get 77 decibels of power out of the Galaxy S4 versus 75 decibels with the HTC One. It's not a huge difference, and quite frankly, they're both powerful, loud, and commanding. However, when we switch to using their 3.5mm headset jacks, we prefer the one in the HTC One just because it features a built-in amplifier, so what we get are richer tones. So let's now take the focus to their rear cameras. Now with the new HTC One, it still maintains the same HTC Ultra Pixel technology from before. So what we get here is a 4-megapixel camera which features a backside illuminated sensor, an f2.0 aperture lens, a dual LED flash, 1080p video recording. But interestingly enough, it features a secondary camera here in the back, and this is primarily used to measure depth information, so it delivers some exciting new effects post-shot. As for the Galaxy S4, it packs along the beefier 13 megapixel autofocus camera, and it features an f2.2 aperture lens, an LED flash, and 1080p video recording. So here are their camera apps. Now the nice thing about them both is that they have a wealth of shooting modes and manual controls. With the Galaxy S4, we could easily select them here on the right side, and they give you some quick information as to what they are. With the HTC One's camera UI, we actually have to hit the settings button. From here, we could change a bunch of different manual controls such as the ISO, and we also have some really cool color effect modes too we could also apply as we're shooting something. Thankfully though, they take some exquisite macro shots, so you're going to be delighted by the results out of the two of them. Under the lower lighting conditions, we're going to hand it to the HTC One, mainly because with the Galaxy S4, we do notice a lot more noise coming in. Now, what makes the HTC One such a joy to use for snapping photos is the set of duo effects that it has to offer. It's just cool that we're able to actually select what areas of the photo we want to have in focus after we take it. So here's the original image. It looks nice and sharp. So if we want to use the duo effect, we just tap on the flower here, and you can see you get that nice soft out of focus effect to the background just because the subject is getting all of the attention. However, if we want the background to have the attention, we could tap on the back and you'll see that here. So you have the background in focus, whereas with the flowers they're not. And they have also some other cool effects that really enhances the quality, so you get those Photoshop-like qualities to it. So here's another image, for example, this motion blur, and you have even this one that has a cartoony look with the background. Both are more than equipped when it comes to taking 1080p videos. There's just a lot of visual flair with them, so you get some good details. Though with the HTC One, its focus seems to be a little bit on the sensitive side, so we tend to see sometimes it going out of focus. But beyond that, when it comes to outdoor quality, they pretty much rival one another. However, when lighting is scarce, we actually prefer the HTC One's quality, just because with the Galaxy S4, there's just a lot more noise throughout the video. And on top of that, its capture rate drops to 24 frames per second, so it tends to be a lot more choppy looking versus the HTC One. We prefer using the HTC One for phone calls just because it's more adept at handling phone calls when there's a lot of noise in the environment, thanks in part to the strong volume output through its earpiece and its speakerphone. You bet you didn't know that these two handsets sport the same battery capacities. They're actually 2600 milliamp hour batteries. Now between them, the HTC One provides us with more battery life over the Galaxy S4. In fact, using a battery benchmark test, we're able to achieve a little bit over 7 hours from a full charge, whereas with the Galaxy S4, it's just a smidgen below the 5-hour mark. So let's talk about pricing first. And as we know, seeing that the Galaxy S4 has been out for almost a year now, it's going to benefit by having a lower on-contract price point. So for those budget-conscious people out there, you're obviously going to get a little bit more bang for your buck with the Samsung Galaxy S4. However, if you're the kind of person that likes to have the latest and greatest, you'll really appreciate the new HTC One. It's a flagship device like no other. It takes pride in having a very appealing design. It's pretty much unparalleled compared to the other devices we've seen thus far. As for the Samsung Galaxy S4, like I said, it has the advantage when it comes to the on-contract price point. So if you want to pick up a smartphone without having to compromise with some sort of cheapo entry-level Android smartphone, the Galaxy S4 is going to be a perfect fit for you. So whichever device you end up picking, you just got to really look at the two handsets, see what really appeals for you, whether or not the design of the HTC One really stands mostly on your list, or whether or not you like the rich features associated with the touch-rich nature your experience of the Galaxy S4. So if you guys want to learn more about either handsets, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.